Hello everyone. Welcome to Software Testing Expert Talk series. Today we have a guest who is a software test consultant having more than 12 years of experience in the IT industry, and all her 12 years of relevant experience is in handling software quality engineer roles. In her career, she has created, maintained, traced testing tasks, and verified key functionality in customer facing products and critical infrastructure in a variety of environments and systems. In her current role as well, she is driving process improvements, influencing feature design for testability, overseeing the test plan development, and significantly contributing towards test automation coverage. I will not make more time in introducing our guest. Our guest is Erin Hess. Welcome to our show, Erin.
Hi, AJ. Thank you so much for that awesome introduction. I am so excited to be on this talk with you today to talk about accessibility and testing.
Guys, as now we know, she has been working in software quality roles for more than 12 years. But she is here today for sharing her knowledge on accessibility testing. And for that reason, we often call her accessibility champion as well. Over
Yes.
to you, Erin. Okay, Erin. So I just want to know what are the prerequisites required to learn accessibility testing?
Oh, wow. Well, there really isn't any prerequisites for learning it other than really having a desire to know about it, or a desire of wanting to spread awareness of it. Because accessibility it's a lot. It covers a lot. It's not just web accessibility, like in our terms, we would discuss it in IT. It's,
Mhm,
in the real world, examples would be wheelchairs or entryway ramps,
mhm,
hearing aids, or braille signs. So if
mhm.
you are just curious about accessibility or want to know more about it, that is the prerequisite.
Awesome, awesome. So could you guide me in layman terms? How do we define accessibility and accessibility testing?
Oh, yes. All right. So accessibility in general refers to the design of products and environments for people with disabilities. So, like I mentioned, wheelchairs, entryway ramps, hearing aids, and that's in your environment, physical environment. In the IT world, accessibility often describes
Mhm,
hardware and software designed to help those who experience disabilities. So,
mhm,
you cannot have accessibility testing without the guidelines or rules of what accessibility is. So, as we
mhm.
just learned, accessibility in general can be a very big subject. We'll keep it short and sweet and related to our talk and our audience. That
Mhm.
testing would be verifying the presence or lack of certain conditions of a website. So,
Okay.
for a website to be considered accessible means that people with disabilities can perceive, understand, navigate, and interact with it
Mhm.
just like a quote unquote normal user would.
Okay. Got it. Got it. So what is web accessibility and why do we need it?
Well, I want to touch on the four guiding principles of accessibility, which would be the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines.
Mhm,
There's a lot we could touch on the why. Some of it is legal, some of it is financial, some of it is better business practices. But in reality, it's the good thing to do. It's the right thing to do. So that's why we need accessibility testing. We should be doing it. But I want to touch on those four guiding principles that I just talked about. So those are in an
mhm,
acronym the word POUR, Pour, and the P
mhm,
is for perceivable, and that
mhm,
just means information and user interface components must be presented to the user in ways that they can perceive.
mhm,
That means removing any barriers that a person with visual impairments may have on the
mhm,
website. So they would need alternative methods to access
Mm-hmm.
something to compensate for the missing or weaker senses. So an example of that might be video captions for a person who's deaf,
Mm-hmm.
um, or the ability to size text for someone with low vision. It
Mm-hmm.
also means to support the use of assisted technologies like screen readers and persons for a person with blindness, because without these, your message is lost in translation. The person with these other disabilities are going to experience your content differently if you don't think about how they're going to perceive it. The next one is
Mm-hmm.
operable, and that just means ensuring your website or app or anything interactive on it can
Mm-hmm.
be controlled through a variety of tools. For example, keyboard only use. I know I've talked in the past about what would you feel like if you used your favorite website without being able to use your mouse, navigate
Mm-hmm.
that website? Like what
Mm-hmm.
barriers might you come across?
Mm-hmm.
And under that principle, you'll find guidelines relating to like time allowance, how long something might take before the page errors out.
Mm-hmm.
Navigating through things like focus order, page titles, links, and headings, and stuff like that. Um, so that's your operable. And then you have your understanding. And that just means using language and functionality that's easy to comprehend.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing should be a surprise for the user because the action and results have a direct correlation to what they're doing. So it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Testing for that, like under that principle, you'll find things like predictable and consistent navigation. You want to make sure the tab order on the page makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Use of the language, such
Mm-hmm.
as abbreviations or jargon, reading levels, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Feedback and error handling is another example of
Mm-hmm.
operable.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, robust. Robust is that the content must be robust enough
Mm-hmm.
that it can be interpreted by a wide variety of user agents,
Mm-hmm.
including assistive technologies. And by that I mean like your screen readers and things like that. So
Mm-hmm.
you're going to find guidelines to this would be parsing and generally clean code. So
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to have duplicate attributes. You want complete start and end tags for your element names, roles and values. Your status messages need to make sense and be clear and concise.
Mm-hmm.
Like an example could be like added to cart while
Mm-hmm.
shopping online should act as a message and not just as a redirect to of an activity and focus for the user. So it
Mm-hmm.
does more than that.
Okay. Okay. Great. Could you just show us example and how we can perform an accessibility testing over a website? Could you just demonstrate that to us so that we can learn it practically as well?
Absolutely, yes. Let me just share my screen here.
Okay.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so what we'll do is let's pretend we're going to test filestack.com
Mm-hmm.
for an accessibility audit.
Mm-hmm.
And just in general, this is going to be using a tool like I'm going to show us Axe
Mm-hmm.
DevTools.
Okay.
And you can go to axe.dq.com
Mm-hmm.
and select a plan. I
Mm-hmm.
actually have their trial pro plan, so I have some options with what I'm going to be showing you today.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I wanted to share that they have a lot of different options. And what I had been familiar with was Axe Core, and I had been using Axe Core for quite a while, and then they developed their dev tools into the browser extension and so on. So you
Mm-hmm.
have these three different ways of using this really great application. But
Okay.
today we're going to just go through simple accessibility audit. Um,
Okay.
so once you have the extension installed, it is a browser plugin. It's going to show up here. You just launch it, and from there you go to your website and kick off the audit.
Mm-hmm.
So once you have your Axe DevTools plan selected, it does execute through DevTools. So
Mm-hmm.
you go to your website. We're going to do filestack.com, and I'm just going to hit F12 to bring up my DevTools.
Mm-hmm.
And from here, you'll see your Axe DevTools up here.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to just kick off a scan of the entire page.
Mm-hmm.
And you literally just click it. It's running through all the WCAG guidelines, the ADA guidelines, what compliance we're setting at. Um, and it's going to spit out a report for you with all of the issues that it finds. And we've got 106.
Wow.
Yes. Out of all of these, one of them is critical. So let's
Mm-hmm.
explore this one issue here. And it's telling us form elements must have labels.
Mm-hmm.
This is pretty crucial. This matters because if a user is tabbing through your website or they're
Mm-hmm.
using a screen reader, if the element doesn't have a label, the screen reader is not going to read it, the user is not going to know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And what's great about what this report is showing you is it's not just giving you the impact,
Mm-hmm.
how it was found, any issues tags, the location. You can actually go and tell it to highlight the page
Mm-hmm.
and go and actually see. It's going to take you to the culprit that's firing that error, telling you
Wow.
that it's a critical issue.
Yeah.
This is awesome because back in the day, if you were doing an audit like this,
Mm-hmm.
the time it would have taken you to manually dig through the guidelines and all of the information to actually produce a useful report for a developer to fix this issue
Mm-hmm.
is like many hours to days compared to what we just saw that took moments.
True. That's really true.
Yes.
Awesome.
So it'll go through telling you the issue description and then how and some solutions to fix it. It's
Mm-hmm.
going to talk about the ARIA labels. So that's how you can look at your critical issues.
Mm-hmm.
So let's explore some of the serious ones now. Now, I would suggest if you ran this
Mm-hmm.
tool on a website that you're
Mm-hmm.
performing an audit on, I would focus on seriously fixing the critical and serious issues. The
Okay.
moderate and minor ones are worth bringing up, but potentially aren't like showstoppers. So
Mm-hmm.
maybe write up a bug report or a tech debt or, just a subtask of some kind documenting it, and you can come back to it later.
Mm-hmm.
So for the serious issues, it's telling us some elements must have sufficient color contrast. This
Mm-hmm.
is a this is a pretty big deal here for visually impaired users because you want color contrasts meeting a certain threshold. So here in the
Mm-hmm.
issue description, you can tell it's actually giving you a great description of
Mm-hmm.
why this is a problem,
Mm-hmm.
telling you where it is, and it's giving you your source code and it's telling you how to fix it. So if I go and look at this on the page,
Mm-hmm.
it's going to show us this sign up free button.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Axe DevTools does not have this particular feature I'm going to show you next. This is available through another browser extension called Wave.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to show you kind of how to experiment with fixing or visualizing what this color contrast issue means. So
Mm-hmm.
I ran the same test in Wave
Mm-hmm.
on file stack because I wanted to get into the color issue.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So we're going to pull it back up. We're going to check our contrast errors here
Mm-hmm.
until it goes. See, now I'm clicking this very first one and it's popping up over here, highlighting this sign up free.
Mm-hmm.
So now I want to know for contrast what's happening there and why.
Mm-hmm.
So it's giving us, we've got our foreground color of white, which hex code is all F's here.
Mm-hmm.
And then our background color is that orange color. And
Mm-hmm.
it's telling you that the contrast ratio is failing
Okay.
because AA, and the text is probably fine. Text size is great. Um,
Mm-hmm.
you really want to care about AA, and I'll go into what level AA actually means in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
But here you can experiment with how to make this pass. Like, Slowly see, I'm changing this slider here, and you
Mm-hmm.
can see
Mm-hmm.
it in the example. You can also see it live on the web page over here too.
Right.
And I'm just changing it. I want to get it to a point where AA passes both.
Okay.
Ah, there, black and white almost always passes. But if you want to go into colors, that's like kind of where you go into risking some failures due to contrast issues.
Right. Right. Cool. Nice feature.
Thanks. Yeah, it's very, very cool. I'm a fan of Wave and XDev tools.
Okay. What else we can see in serious issues of X regarding the site?
Ah, yes. So besides we have the elements must have sufficient color contrast, we're
Mm-hmm.
going to see that that's literally all of them.
Is,
There's
is, is there
50,
is there any way
15.
is there any way to show the developers apart from the screenshot of the front end? Can we show them in where at what moment of code it is we have problem through the.
Absolutely. Yes. So in here you can kind of see we've got our code snippets.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is super useful. So you have many stakeholders that might be very interested in an audit for
Mm-hmm.
accessibility.
Mm-hmm.
So it would behoove you to include not just screenshots of what you're seeing on the front end, not just the text description that you're given for the violation, but that developer, the person who's going to be fixing it, they would love to know more about it than the front end screenshot. So the way you can actually show them this is by hitting this instead of doing the highlight. So I have a
Mm-hmm.
highlight option here and it shows it to you here, takes you
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
It also has inspect.
Mm-hmm.
Inspect is going to take you to what a lot of developers and UI developers are used to seeing, which is the elements on the page. And this right here is where I would just grab a screenshot of this whole section,
Mm-hmm.
included this div class with
Mm-hmm.
it that shows that buttons class information.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, cool stuff.
Yeah. It's exciting.
Great. Coming to our next question, Erin, which disabilities, or we can say, which specially abled people are supported by accessibility testing?
Oh, that's a great question. So, all right, there's a lot, but I want to respond to your question with like a leading question. So, did you know that the most common categories for accessibility are pain, flexibility, and mobility? And
Mm-hmm.
that's followed by mental health, dexterity, and hearing, and then seeing, learning, and memory.
Mm-hmm.
Like most people, if you ask about accessibility, they're immediately going to be like, oh, yeah, screen readers, hearing, or
Mm-hmm.
vision loss, vision.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, those are the most least common
Mm-hmm.
reasons. And I think that blows my mind because when I first started exploring accessibility and testing and understanding it, that's my
Mm-hmm.
approach. I immediately started with vision and things that I could compare my own site to.
Mm-hmm.
The more I learned, I found out that there's so much more to it
Mm-hmm.
and that those categories, there's so many.
Okay, cool. Uh, so, apart from the web accessibility, what accessibility features are present in mobile these days? Because people are using mobile like anything.
Oh, that's true. Now, I would like to come back to this topic
Mm-hmm.
with maybe another accessibility champion that has their specialty in mobile testing,
Okay.
but and mobile devices. But I want to say I have tested some features on mobile, like I had mentioned. I know we've talked in the past about my experiences working at Overdrive, where they're a digital content clearinghouse. So if you have a library book or a
Mm-hmm.
library card, they are probably the app that you've used to download your ebooks if you don't use Audible. It's
Mm-hmm.
free through your library. And working there, I learned about screen readers and that, iPhones and Androids come
Mm-hmm.
baked with the screen readers um, in
Mm-hmm.
them, and those will allow you to it's basically going to read your screen, literally what it says. So I learned how to use screen readers, how compatible they are with applications. I've tested dyslexic fonts for
Mm-hmm.
ebooks as well on mobile because that is the device that this content is consumed with. So most of my testing is typically done on desktop for
Mm-hmm.
web apps, but you can almost apply those same concepts across the board for mobile.
Mm-hmm.
So like what I've seen is that a lot of the same tests are done on mobile that are done on desktop. But there's, I'm sure, other guidelines that I'm just not aware of because it's not something that I've actively been testing.
Okay. Okay. So, what misconceptions can be heard for testing website accessibility?
Um, some people would say that they think it would be hard, that testing isn't actually approachable.
Mm-hmm.
Others might say that accessibility testing can't be automated, but quite often, and like as I've already demonstrated with you today,
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit of it is already automated for you. Like you're manually clicking the button and telling the, Axe DevTools application to run an audit, but you're
Mm-hmm.
not actually doing all the work. You're not validating the guideline checks or checking any of the issues that you're finding. You kind of take it at face value. So it is super approachable now, especially if you're doing web accessibility testing.
Okay. Okay. So, coming to next question. So, what are the challenges of accessibility testing these days? And could you just elaborate or demonstrate something about it?
Oh, yes. So sometimes I would say it's not as approachable to test something for a user
Mm-hmm.
who has no vision when you've had vision your whole life. So I've always approached, I
Mm-hmm.
won't say always, I have learned to approach my testing in
Mm-hmm.
a very empathetic way
Mm-hmm.
because you're literally putting yourself in this other person's shoes. So you want to do your due diligence for them. It's almost like you're obligated to, all right, if this application needs to be accessible by people with low vision or no vision, then I need to make sure as a person that I have fine vision other than, some color blindness that I can experience this application for this other user and that it passes, that I'm confident that they would not have any barriers when interacting with this application. So I'd love to show one of my favorite websites to explore this with is called Funkify, and it is a disability simulator.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it is, if you've ever wanted to know what it's like to see a website as somebody who's colorblind or has dyslexia, or as I'll show you in a moment, we're going to go through them all. This is how to do that. And I'll provide you guys with some links to get this application. It is free. There's a
Mm-hmm.
free version and there's a trial version.
Mm-hmm.
I recommend before you try it, this
Mm-hmm.
free version, try the premium version first. You don't have to provide any payment details. You can literally try the premium version for 14 or 4 days and you'll have access to all of these neat little personas to simulate.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm going to show you today I actually have
Mm-hmm.
the regular version.
Okay.
I want to go through, here we are, Funkify. So it is a Chrome extension.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it might be supported by other browsers, I'm not totally sure. But
Mm-hmm.
we're going to go to food.com, and right
Mm-hmm.
now this is what the website looks like ordinarily. It's colorful, there's lots of headers, there's lots of pictures,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of stuff going on here. But I want to know, as Blurry Bianca, what am
Mm-hmm.
I going to see when I'm on this website? So you just hit start, and immediately you kind of notice the background's blurry. It's
Yeah,
weird.
I can see that.
Yes, so now it's telling you, some statistics about blurry vision. About 4% have a vision impairment, and about
Mhm.
60% of the population wear glasses or contact lenses.
Mhm.
Um, with our version, we cannot adjust the intensity of the blur. It's set at 1.6, but you can go all through this slider with the premium version and experience what it's like to have a lot of intense blurring.
Mhm.
And this simulator will go through it, and it's explaining to us if you've ever been very tired or you've had probably experienced blurry vision. It's a common impairment like nearsightedness or farsightedness or even cataracts. So for those users using their eyeballs, this is a way to see, quote unquote, what it's
Mhm.
like to be them.
Okay.
Yep. And right next we'll look at, see, now we're back to normal. We're going to see color Carl. Now, I
Mhm.
am going to say right off the bat, this is color blindness. There are many different types of color blindness.
Mhm.
This version, I don't know if you caught on right away. I clicked start, but now everything's kind of green
Yeah.
if you
I
aren't colorblind.
okay.
Yeah. And what it's set up as right now is red-green color blindness, which is also known as deuteranopia.
Mhm.
And it's saying 1 out of every 100 men or 1 in 300 women have this condition.
Mhm.
And it's also telling us many people print pages in black and white, and most ebook readers show everything on grayscale. And this is an accessibility feature that was developed specifically for
Mhm.
colorblind.
Mhm.
I can recall testing things for Overdrive once again, and we had color or high contrast modes
Mhm.
that we developed specifically for this. Instead of having different themes,
Mhm.
we went ahead and went down to like the simple black white grayscale, and
Mhm.
that is what you can apply so that if you are colorblind, you're not going to have any issues
Mhm.
experiencing our content.
Okay.
Next, we'll have Dyslexia Danny. This one's really cool. Prepare yourself. So you see all the text on the screen. Now, just focus on the text.
Okay.
All right.
Ah, it's changing.
Yes. About 10% of people have a reading impairment, and this
Mhm.
dyslexic simulator, um, it's kind of showing what it's like to have dyslexia. And to explain that, it's like you see words. Each word has a set of letters in it. People with dyslexia have um, a reading impairment where it looks like the letters move within
Mhm.
the word. So you're seeing it right here. The more you look at it, you can kind of make out, okay, those letters spell out jello, or this word spells out chicken, but there you're seeing those letters shuffle around.
Mhm.
And that's what it's like for people with dyslexia. So you end up spending a little bit more time on a page trying
Mhm.
to make sense of and define the content on your own. Whereas if there are certain fonts available that make it a little bit easier for people with dyslexia to break up the letters in a word, and they don't have such a hard time reading the content.
Mhm. Okay.
All right. Trembling Trevor. Now, this one is interesting. This is like a simulator of someone with Parkinson's, for example,
Mhm.
or potentially maybe a temporary mobile
Mhm.
restriction. And you see the mouse
Yeah. So
moving
you are not
around?
moving it.
I'm not doing that.
Okay.
It 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 makes it very difficult. I can scroll without a problem, but as soon as I bring my mouse into where I want to try to click on something, it becomes like a cat and mouse. Like I gotta try to get there quick enough and
Okay.
click on it. But
Mhm.
that's that simulator, and it's pretty interesting. It's gonna say here that if you've ever used your phone on a bumpy bus ride, you have experienced problems with your fine motor skills.
Mhm.
Most of us get lowered motor skills as we age, and it's also a common symptom in Parkinson's
Mhm.
disease, arthritis, multiple
Mhm.
sclerosis, and cerebral palsy. So there's so many people out there that have this condition that if maybe before this moment you never even considered it.
Right.
right? And now you have a way to empathize and even experience that for yourself and what it's like. And what it would do for you is give you that insight and empathy for that um, developing with these people in mind.
Right. Absolutely.
We've got two more we can look at, and the rest of these are ones that you can get into if you have the premium version.
Mhm.
So we'll look at Tunnel Toby, and this is going to simulate vision loss. As you can see immediately, our screen is black.
Yeah.
All right, so, and it's saying here, do you see the light in the end of the tunnel? This is how many people with vision impairments as retinitis pigmentosa or RP or glaucoma sees the screen. And as they lose their peripheral vision, everything gets black, it gets dark, and literally
Oh.
you don't see. So what I'm simulating now with the mouse is
Mhm.
my eye movement, not so much the mouse itself, but where I focus my vision. So you can see as I do this, I'm limited by what I can actually see.
Right. Right. Okay.
And then
Interesting.
finally, we've got one more, and this is almost the opposite of what we just saw with
Hmm.
Tunnel Toby. Peripheral Pierre is almost the opposite. This person has a big old black spot in their vision in the middle. They can see peripheral, but they cannot see right in front of them.
Hmm.
And what they do see, as you can easily see here, it's blurry too. So not only do they have this big black spot in their vision, but they can't really even make out what's behind it or
Hmm.
around it.
Hmm.
Um, about 4% of the population have a visual impairment. And this particular simulator is going to say many people with low vision have no central vision.
Hmm.
And with this impairment, you only have peripheral sight. And
Hmm.
this is what peripheral Pierre attempts to illustrate. So you're seeing all that around the black dot, for example.
Hmm. Right. Right.
And that is Funkify in a nutshell.
Yeah, interesting tool. So I've never thought of these kinds of testing ever. Like while creating scenarios for testing an application.
Yeah, I like to call this type of testing almost like it's exploratory,
Hmm.
but I also it's empathy, learning empathy. I wish I could have a better way to say that, but that's also what you're doing here.
Okay, got it. That's great. Great insight towards Funkify tool from you. Coming to our next question, what is the manual method of doing accessibility testing?
Oh, cool. So almost what I just showed you, it's the literally doing of the thing. So a way to manually test is access your favorite website on your mobile phone, but instead of navigating using your hands, use something else, like a voice command, or try to get through a checkout process on Amazon without using any way that you're familiar with. That's kind of the manual method of it. It's the doing of the thing.
Mhm. Got it. Okay. So as we have discussed the manual method of doing accessibility testing, so what are the automated methods available for doing accessibility testing? What all methods so far?
Yes, so we have just explored Axe DevTools, which is a mix of you're not completely manual and you're
Hmm.
not completely automated. It's a nice pairing of the two,
Hmm.
and it takes a lot of the hard work out for you. And what the Axe DevTools is showing here, and I'm going to read it off their website. It's automated testing. You can view your results. It's pulling in the data for you. It's testing those guidelines. It's checking those guidelines, and then it's spitting out all of the data that you need to put together a report for your developers and stakeholders to fix any of the accessibility barriers that you found. They have full-blown automated. Nothing is actually full-blown automated, actually. So I want to mention a low-code automated solution like TestM.
Hmm.
If you belong to TestM, they have a TestM Labs,
Hmm.
and within that, you get access to some features that aren't within the whole product. These are kind of like early access or special features, and some of those include accessibility testing. And as much as that can automate, you literally give it the website URL that you want to run the audit on, and you can also go in and set the levels of compliance you wish to meet. So ADA, level AA,
Mm-hmm.
or WCA 3, 2.0 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
You can even set it to just best practices. However lenient you want to give, and you tell it what level you want, and it runs the audit. You actually don't see it like I've shown you with the Axe Dev tools where you can interact with the results.
Mm-hmm.
This does spit it out. I would show you, but I would. Not everyone has access, so it wouldn't be fair to be like, "Hey, is out there, but you can't use it." It's not as accessible to everyone unless you're part of test and labs. But it is going to give you, just like I've shown with the dev tools, the ability to explore more of the
Mm-hmm.
error. So it'll give you your description, just like I'm going to pull up this example from the serious issues we found. You'll get your element location and you'll get a source, and it'll give you a couple of solutions to your issue,
Mm-hmm.
or a way to fix it, and at least reference the category and the issue, whether it's level AA or something else. So there's actually, I haven't discovered yet
Mm-hmm.
completely, totally automated accessibility audits. There's gonna always need to be that human element involved, because a machine is not going to be able to tell you
Mm-hmm.
what a blind person can tell you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Okay. Coming to our next question. Based on what criteria we can measure web accessibility and can say that this website meets accessibility standards?
All right, so as I've touched on this a couple times so far, that level ADA compliance I keep bringing up.
Mm-hmm.
There's three levels of ADA compliance that is part of that web content accessibility guideline. And those levels of compliance reflect the priority of support. So, for example, level A just means essential.
Mm-hmm.
So, if that means if this isn't met, then assistive technology may not be able to read, understand, or fully operate the page or view it.
Mm-hmm.
That's almost the basic, like it says essential. Everything on the internet should meet that level. The next one, it's AA, which is your ideal support, and this is required for multiple government and public bodied websites.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, like, most projects strive for AA compliance. I
Mm-hmm.
have not worked anywhere that they don't care about that level. Like, they want to meet that level. That is their goal, is
Mm-hmm.
level AA. And then after that, you have triple AAA, which is specialized support, and that's typically reserved for parts of the websites and web apps that serve a specialized audience. I would say like super government agencies, or maybe stuff that has protected health information in it. Something with secured access would be
Mm-hmm.
this. And then these checklists target many, but not all
Okay.
concerns. So that there's different levels, but the more you know, the more insight you can have and produce like quality audits.
Got it. Fine. Fine. So, Erin, do we have a checklist that can share some points over which one needs to be cautious about while performing web accessibility testing?
Um, well, there's some resources out there for checklists. You could literally Google a
Okay.
checklist and come up with a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I can show a quick example here. Let's see. One moment.
Okay.
We're not going to show Bing. So, quick Google search, we could say level AA, ADA, compliance, accessibility checklist,
Mm-hmm.
and skip all the ads. But once you kind of grow into the details, you actually see some decent results here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then going into these, this is kind of how I build my own knowledge. I go into Google, I throw my questions out there, and then I start finding websites and communities that have more specific content related to the specific guideline that I might be looking into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this is where I would start. Here's a great example right here, and it is on Medium, and it's just a
Mm-hmm.
checklist, compliant guidelines for 2021 in plain English.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and in here, I can share this with you too, but I just reading it right now, I'm getting more insight than I even had yesterday.
Got it. Got it. Fine. So you mean to say, of course, one can Google it and find it out and learn it based on their experience
Yes,
or whatever they dig into.
exactly. Because there's really not one particular checklist. It's going to be tailored to your unique criteria or situation, or maybe even project that you're testing. It may become your responsibility to develop this checklist if your business doesn't already have something like this, incorporated into the development process. Let's say you're like the only one bringing up accessibility in your organization. So it's going to be up to you at this point to, do your homework and find all the information that's out there now that's relevant. And the data changes all the
Mm-hmm.
time. So, a guideline that was applicable 2 years ago may have updated now, and there's other guidelines that connect to it. You want to be able to stay on top of that information and that knowledge, not
Mm-hmm.
just for you, but to actually take that into your business or your projects and spread that awareness and be like, this is the right thing to do. These are the changes that are made. Here's this checklist. I went through it and I'm actually seeing a couple things that concern me, and this is how I want to approach it.
Okay. Cool. Coming to our last question. So what are the tools available in the market for performing accessibility testing, and which one is your favorite one?
Oh, cool. So we have been exploring Axe DevTools so far.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite, I have been using Axe for a long time, but there's several of them out there. Another one, a great one, for example, if I bring up my DevTools again, not just
Mm-hmm.
in general DevTools, you can see Lighthouse up here.
Mm-hmm.
And Lighthouse is another Chrome extension.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe this is available in any other browser. I think it's just specific to Chrome. And
Mm-hmm.
you can set up an accessibility audit for your web page just like I did before. It gives you the interface is a little different. So you have these other options. If you hover, it tells you kind of the description of what these categories mean.
Mm-hmm.
The device you're executing. So here's a great one I'm learning with you right now. I can do a mobile accessibility audit on this website. All I got to do is change my device. Didn't know
Right.
I could do that. And let's generate a report for mobile and see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I bet you Lighthouse hasn't been developed, or FileStack hasn't been developed to be mobile accessible, because most people, when they're on FileStack, is developing on their computers at home.
Okay.
So let's see, though, just for fun, how compatible this website is for mobile.
Right.
Um, we'll give it a moment.
Till we get the results, I know that you have written a Medium post where you have mentioned a lot of tools. Can you share that with our audience as well?
Yes, 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 yes. Um, I have Medium where I will post my own articles
Mm-hmm.
about um, web accessibility, tech,
Mm-hmm.
neurodiversity in the tech industry. I like talking about giving feedback. I'm a big fan. I'm like that person that if I get a receipt and there's a survey on the bottom, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to fill the survey out because I want the free thing, like the free taco or whatever. I'm going to fill out that survey because I want somebody to know how my experience was, whether it was good or bad, because that feedback is meaningful. They wouldn't be asking for it if they didn't want that feedback. So that's part of how I approach many
Okay.
things. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm pulling up my Medium account for us here, and we can kind of take a look at my story that I
Mm-hmm.
posted recently about accessibility testing tools.
Okay.
And in here, I go over Funkify like we have today, but it kind of it is my number one favorite. That's why it's at the top.
That's good.
Funkify is so cool. Like it is something that will bring you some joy, whether you just want to experience something new as another abled human being
Mm-hmm.
differently. So, like I showed you the dyslexia and the colorblindness. Um, you're exploratory testing using this tool, and you're also getting insight into accessibility and what it means and why it matters. Like, you
Mm-hmm.
are going to see all of these other human beings have these barriers and challenges that you have may never have thought about, it never crossed your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And now you have that insight and you understand what that challenge is like for them,
Mm-hmm.
and hopefully that'll guide your design implementation or your development efforts
Mm-hmm.
in whatever you're doing so that you have these other users in mind.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And here I discuss Funkify. No Coffee's kind of like Funkify, just not as robust. You don't have as many people to play with, for
Mm-hmm.
example. It's more around visual impairments.
Okay.
And NVDA is a tool I have used when testing screen readers on desktop.
Mm-hmm.
Wave, we went over that with the file stack
Yeah.
color issue.
Yeah.
And accessiblecolors.com, that's cool. That's an in-browser contrast checker. It's kind of like that little tool over here, but it
Mm-hmm.
is its own website. It does its own, that is all it does.
Mm-hmm.
Colorzilla is similar. It assists web developers and designers with color related stuff. So if you want to
Mm-hmm.
verify your contrast
Mm-hmm.
compliance, this is a
Mm-hmm.
great tool to go in and check that.
Okay.
And then Lighthouse. Since this is where we end here, let's see how far our
Audited
little
has gone.
audit got. It's
Yeah.
still warming up. That's unfortunate. Let's put it back to desktop because I bet that's why it never finished
Yeah.
because it's not mobile.
That's true.
Yeah, see,
Yeah.
yeah, it's already so much further.
Yeah. So you were aware of about of this thing.
Yeah, I had kind of had an inkling that the mobile wasn't going to work.
Cool.
So while it is doing the audit, you can see it's popping up these cool little "Did you know?"
Mm-hmm.
prompts.
Mm-hmm.
Almost done.
Yep.
All right, so, oh boy. Um, so performance-wise, it's not sure. It did not like how long everything took to
Mm-hmm.
load on FileStack. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Actually, no. It says there's an issue affecting this run. The page did not paint any content. Please ensure you keep the browser window in the foreground. I've got an idea. Let's restart that
Mm-hmm.
audit.
Okay.
I just care about, I'm not going to do performance, I'm not going to do progressive web, I'm going to do best practices and accessibility. SEO, search engine optimization, is its own topic for another day, and
Yeah.
I would love to go over that because SEO is a hot topic right now.
Really true. Very true.
Yes, all right, so we're going to hit up best practices and accessibility.
Okay.
I was making
Working.
it try too hard. Huh.
Seems we're gonna get a lot of results.
I hope we get something similar. Then than what we had with our other audit because um, that also gives you that confidence that these automated, semi-automated audits are actually pulling back the same
Mhm,
content and the same criteria.
mhm,
That's why you'll find a lot of accessibility testers will have more than one tool that they use
mhm,
until they get super confident in the results of one tool. And at this point, like, I still don't use just one tool over the other. I will try to go back and forth because all of that information is still out there, and I might be getting a more recent version with this version of Lighthouse than I might have with Axe DevTools because maybe they have different access to those guidelines. I'm sure it's all done through APIs and backend code where they're checking those
mhm,
rules, and
mhm.
they have those rules baked into their code. Those changes happen all the time, so I like to try to do more than one audit with more than one tool before I give any report.
Okay, that's great. So
hmm
we get something out of it.
Yeah, yes, exactly. Your information you're providing back to the team and stakeholders becomes more meaningful after,
Mhm,
you know. All right, so we are seeing similar results here with Lighthouse than we did with DevTools and even
mhm,
Wave.
mhm.
And with that, we're seeing those high contrast issues.
Right.
Um, it's doing something similar.
Mhm.
It's telling us low contrast text is difficult. I don't know. Let's see what this learn more shows us. It's taking us to their, it looks like their almost knowledge base article about
Mhm,
why background and foreground colors should have sufficient contrast and how to solve those issues. And it goes into WCAG details. So what we're seeing here involves a little bit more manual effort to dig
mhm,
into the solution and
mhm.
put something together that's meaningful for your stakeholder and developer versus what we pulled up you know even here
Yeah.
where we don't have to go that far. Everything is right here in front of us and we can even change it. We can look at details, we can see the references.
Mhm,
um, you can click in into any one of these and it'll take you a little bit further. So all of these um, accessibility testing tools you can see have their own use. They're all super useful, and even to use side by side. Like I really prefer doing this contrast within Wave versus doing it in DevTools.
mhm. Cool. I think we have learned a lot today, like looking into different tools and just tried different websites and found out like what issues we can get out of accessibility testing and what issues we can raise.
Yes.
So that's great, Erin. Thanks for sharing that much information. So now we have actually came to closure of this session. Anything else you want to say before we wrap up
Oh,
this session?
yeah. If you guys want to continue the conversation, reach out to me on LinkedIn. You can find me at Erin-Hess.
Yeah.
You can find me on Twitter at Queen Tester.
Hmm.
And that's pretty much where I hang out for professional development on LinkedIn and Twitter. Um, and I'm more than happy to discuss accessibility, testing, cats, the weather, whatever.
Awesome. Awesome.
Yeah.
It's amazing to have you here in our show, Erin. Thanks,
Thank
Erin,
you.
for this wonderful session on accessibility testing. I believe our viewers have learned a lot of things which they might not have been knowing about earlier. So, thank you. Thanks for your time, and we are wishing you success for your upcoming projects and looking for more such sessions in upcoming future.
I can't wait, AJ. Thank you so much for having me on this STET.
Thank you, Erin.